It's Jasmine. I build and fly radio-controlled model aircraft. I'm about to take you on a great adventure where I'm going to be building my new PAU 100cc Ultimate Biplane. I'll be sharing some of the tips and tricks that I use for building, as well as how I set stuff up, and just sharing a bunch of information to kind of pass it along. So let's get started and build this thing. Alright guys, step one, we gotta have a little talk. You gotta do the most important thing. Before you go into tearing any monocoat, installing servos, bolting up your engine, you have to do one thing. Read the manual. Download it onto your tablet. Get the printout from the manufacturer when you open the kit. Use a smartphone. Get a buddy to print it out for you. Go through the whole thing. A lot of times there's crucial information from the manufacturer that you need to know to put it together so you can have a good flying experience. An important note on this one that I noticed in the manual was that the thrust angle on the firewall is a little off from the factory, and they give you that bit of information right here on how to correct it. So before you go drilling holes, make sure you're drilling them in the right spot. I can't emphasize it enough. For you guys out there that are not building PAU planes, I'd like you to do yourself a favor, put a decent tool in the workshop. You can go to flypau.com, look at all their aircraft. They've got some great color schemes, they're great flying aircraft. And in the back of every manual is a throw template that you can print out, fold in half, tape to your control surfaces, and easily get an eyeball of what your deflection is. Not every manufacturer includes handy tools like this. The guys at PAU, it's in every manual. The manuals are free to download, and I can't emphasize the use of that. Use it all the time, as you'll see later in the videos. Alright, let's talk a little bit about monocoat. Monocoat is a wonderful surface for your airplanes. Number one, it looks great. It's easy to apply. It only requires simple ironing, which any of us can do. Heat guns can also be used. I find it handy to use paper towels. Other people use gloves or socks on their heat irons. Your mileage may vary. Each person has their own technique. You find a rhythm with it. The important thing to know is that it is very much like your old school shrinky dinks, where you apply heat and it'll stretch, and then as it cools, it shrinks to form. And that's where the adhesive backing really sticks to your balsa wood or surface underneath. I have seen monocoat on fiberglass. It works great. I have not seen it on metal. I believe the more porous the material, the easier it is to breathe. Monocoat is known for getting bubbles. Which brings us to the next thing. I'm sure you've unboxed an airplane or been out to the field and seen this beautiful big model, and as you walk up close it's got wrinkles all over the place. That's probably because they haven't shrunk the monocoat on their plane as they pull it out of the box before the build. I like to do this in a couple of phases. Number one, earlier in the build series, later on before the maiden flight, and then I let it sit out in the sun for a couple days while I'm out there flying before I apply any stickers. This gives it a chance to get a couple heat cycles and really get all the wrinkles out. Coming out of the box in the cold basement, you get this effect here where it wrinkles up the monocoat, and this is the reason why you want to heat it up and shrink it and get it back to smooth. I'm going to be using a heat iron here, and guys, this isn't McDonald's, but I will say the joke. It's hot. Don't burn yourself. Again, some people use a sock. I use a simple paper towel. Put what you're working on a flat and level surface. And instead of this being a shirt on the ironing board, you're going to put this over the bubble and heat up the monocoat and keep the iron in motion. It's slow, tedious, but you'll get the wrinkles out just like with your shirts. It'll form a little bubble here, and you kind of apply pressure and then use the rag and you can smooth it out. This is very much an acquired skill. I recommend getting some practice pieces if this is your first time, or try out something wacky. What I did was I monocoated my stick plane first. It gave me a chance to try monocoat over monocoat, working with bubbles, fine lines, shapes, and weird corners. But it turned out pretty good. And here you can see, after some ironing, I did this first section here. It's pretty smooth. Try to get the reflection. And you can see where later in the red, up here, it's still bubbled. But down here is nice and smooth. And that'll look great out at the field. Anyway, I'm going to finish monocoating the rest of the plane, and I'll be back with you in a little bit. Alright guys, before I put away this wing panel and move on to the next one, I want to point out a step that I do at this time. And that is, find the servo location as you are doing the monocoat and get a brand new X-Acto blade. Don't use used ones. They tear the monocoat and it shreds it. It looks kind of trashy. And an important thing that I do is I cut just short of the edge so that I can use the heat iron and kind of fold the monocoat over the balsa into the cavity where the servo mounts. So I start off by putting 4 little cuts in the corners where it's going to be beveled. I use a finger to press down in the monocoat to see the outline of the servo. Makes it really easy to spot. And then cut real carefully. I like to do the long parallel lines first. If you start doing the corners first and do perpendicular lines, a lot of times you end up holding this flat. Well, by doing it the parallel first and then the perpendicular, you can get a single tab that you can then pull out so it doesn't fall into the wing and make your last cut, keeping it taut so you get a nice clean cut. Nice little rectangle. Let me show you what I got here. See the servo cavity here, and you can see where I've left this little bit of overlap so that I can take the heat iron and fold it in. For you guys running smoke, this helps keep some of the edges of the balsa safe from smoke oil also. It's not just a clean install. There I've done 3 of the sides. Let me show you so that you can see the comparison. There you can see where I've done the edge here, but not this edge yet. Alright, so let me finish this up, and I'll see you in a little bit. Hey, check it out, y'all are still here. Cool. I've gone ahead and finished all the monocoat shrinking with the heat iron, and I also used the heat gun for the bigger areas. Be very careful with that. It's easy to burn the monocoat and it'll stretch. I'm not perfect either, and I'm sure a little bit later you might see a little, imperfections, but it's really not that bad. Definitely practice at your own pace, and be careful with it because you don't want to wreck it. The next thing that I like to do is install the landing gear. My workbench is outfitted with a couple PVC tubes here where I can put these braces to hold the models at different locations for when I'm working on different areas. Having a landing gear on helps me use this. So the next step, go ahead and check your owner's manual, whatever you need to do. Get the axles on the landing gear and the wheels on also. And I'll check back with you in a few. Alright guys, what I've done here is I've pre-assembled my landing gear a little bit. I did not use Loctite yet. This is a temporary thing to make it easy to maneuver around the workshop as I build. But later we'll be taking this apart, and I'll show you some tips to help make sure your wheels don't fall off and the wheel pans don't get destroyed. Good stuff to come. Like I was saying earlier, my workbench is kind of suited for this. I've got the bracket in the tail, and I can pick up the front and set the landing gear under easily, and it holds the plane fairly level while I put the bolts in. Helps if you put the bolt in the landing gear first. Alright. I'll get my tools and tighten that up and get the lock nuts on the inside. Make sure everything's fastened tightly and that the landing gear isn't loose or flexes, and that you have them on the right way. If you have the landing gear on backwards, the airplane could be more prone to ground looping or nosing over on takeoff, or when you're coming in for a landing if you don't have enough elevator to hold the tail down. If you're going too fast, that's where you get that bouncy, bouncy, bouncy. Anyway, I'll get back to it and we'll see you soon. Alright people, it's starting to get a little late here, so I'm going to be turning in for the night, but I've gone ahead and pulled out everything that I need to set up the rudder, which is the part that I like to do next. It kind of gets the last piece out of the way for me. All the other control hinges come from the factory pre-glued and everything's ready to go. It's really a great kit. But the rudder still needs to be glued on. It has a Robart style hinge that's pre-glued into the control surface from the factory, and what we're going to do is put this rudder onto the vertical stabilizer without gluing the hinges. I'm going to show you a trick. So in the morning we'll go through that, and I'll try to get stuff posted up as soon as I can. See you soon. Bye.